Hey people, so I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff in this video because a volume of the Ace side story came out, volume 2. Volume 1 has been out for a while now. That volume, the first one, was a lot of information about the Spade Pirates. This one, even though it hasn't been translated in its entirety, like I think a lot of the main points, some information has already been translated. By the way, shout out to Sandman on Twitter for translating those things. And there should be a volume 3 coming out sometime in the future. But as of right now, I think volume 2, at least to me, is a little bit more interesting than what we got out of volume 1. From a world building aspect, I just felt like there was more valuable information in this volume than in the previous one. Now really what these Ace volumes, these Ace side stories are doing is that they're actually expanding on a flashback that we had already gotten during Marineford that was about Ace and Whitebeard. This is, I believe it's episode 461 and then manga chapters 551 to 552. So it's essentially the same trunk of the story that we get in that flashback in those chapters, except it's fleshed out a lot more. It's expanded upon. So personally, I am treating these novels as canon just because they don't change anything from the main storyline, they just add on to it. And the guy who wrote these stories actually had meetings with the editors and Oda himself, and they were giving him tips and telling him, like, you know, just how to adjust certain things. And there's very valuable information about the Yong-Chol, about the Whitebeard era that we didn't have before. And if this guy had conversations with Oda, I'm pretty sure that's where he got the information from. So I feel like this is kind of like an SBS, but just told in a narrative form. Okay, so essentially what happens in the beginning is that Ace is getting ready to enter the New World. So him and his crew are in Fishman Island, and this guy tells them a little bit about what's going on in Fishman Island. Shida Hoshi at this point has already been imprisoned because she's afraid of Vanderdecken, you know, because Vanderdecken has that devil fruit ability that if he touches you, he marks you, and then he can send stuff, throw stuff at you, and you're always the target. It doesn't matter how far away you are from him. If he shoots something at you, it'll reach you. So Shida Hoshi has been imprisoned for her own safety because Vanderdecken is just throwing stuff at her. He wants to marry her, and Ace makes the comment that if that's the case, then you risk a rebellion happening in Fishman Island because that means that Neptune does not have enough power to protect the princess Shida Hoshi, his own daughter. And it turns out that the character that Ace was talking to is none other than Aladdin, or Aladdin, the fishman from Whole Cake Island. You remember him. He was left behind at the end of the arc there. And so Aladdin tells Ace that there's no risk in there being a rebellion in Fishman Island because even if Neptune is weak and he's not strong enough to protect Shida Hoshi directly from Vanderdecken, there's still two people involved in the well-being of Fishman Island, and those people are Jinbei and Whitebeard. And that kind of got me thinking about why neither Whitebeard nor Jinbei decided to beat the crap or beat Vanderdecken into a pulp to stop him from harassing Shida Hoshi. But whatever, the fact of the matter is that at that point in time, Fishman Island was under the protection of Whitebeard, then Whitebeard dies, and it passes on to Big Mom, and now Fishman Island is currently under Luffy's protection, according to Luffy. That being said, before Ace leaves Fishman Island, he actually decides to set fire to Whitebeard's flag. And as we learn in this volume, that's a serious offense. Like, Yonko don't take these things lightly. It turns out that if something happens like this, if like a pirate crew offends a Yonko or they try and mess things up, like Yonko take these things very seriously. So they chase down whoever the offender is. And so not only does this support the idea that the Big Mom Pirates will eventually end up chasing the Straw Hats further into the New World, you know, so that they can pay for what they did in Whole Cake, but at the same time, it also gives us the answer for as to why Jinbei fought Ace in the first place. According to the volume, after Ace burns Whitebeard's flag in Fishman Island and he enters the New World, Jinbei begins to follow him. Like, if anything, I think that Shanks would be the only exception to this rule. He would be more laid back, because we know that Bartolomeo ended up burning one of Shanks's flags. And just because of the way, like, Shanks has been, or the way that he was introduced personality-wise, you know, he's like, you know, you can pour a drink on me, it's fine. Just don't mess with my friends. Anyway, Ace makes it a point to meet Shanks. He wants to meet Shanks because I guess Luffy just would not shut up about him during the time when they were kids and they were training, because Shanks saved Luffy's life. So he goes onto this winter island, and that's where Shanks is. Now, according to the volume, Shanks is the hardest Yonko to find. He's the hardest Yonko to locate. He's like the biggest mystery within the Yonko prior to Blackbeard joining. And so we get, some pretty cool information about each of the Yonko individually. And by the way, this information is primarily coming from two characters in the novel that happen to be in Ace's crew. They're spade pirates. One is called Deuce, the other one is called Skull. So they've been gathering information about the New World, and they kind of share it with Ace as he goes along his journey. The first thing that we find out about the Yonko is essentially what makes them tick. I feel like this is kind of like an explanation for the reader to understand what could sort of justify a rage boost for each of these Yonko individually. So according to the translation, and again, shout out to Sandman, great work, Shanks is scary when he gets angry. I mean, that's literally the definition of a rage boost, right? And we've seen this before, even before King's Haki was introduced, the way that he looked at that Sea King, the Sea King dipped. He was like, I am getting out of here. Look at that. I cannot stay. I'm sorry I bit your arm. Don't kill me. But overall, I think that what we've learned is what really makes Shanks angry is the same reason that would make Luffy angry, which is somebody messing with one of their friends, one of the Nakama. Whitebeard is scariest when somebody does something against their own code, their own humanity, their own honor, which if you saw Marineford, you know how he reacted against Blackbeard. He was putting in work when it came to Blackbeard and Akainu. It was not a fun time for Blackbeard and Akainu. Although technically speaking, I don't think Akainu violated his own code. I actually think he lived up to his code of absolute justice. Teach, on the other hand, this guy pretended to be a Nakama. He pretended to be a crewmate of the Whitebeard pirates for 20 years just to get the Yami Yami no Mi. And I think that in addition to how powerful that fruit is because it negates devil fruit abilities, there has to be another reason for why he wanted it so bad, to wait 20 years, to pretend to be somebody's friend, somebody's ally, to live with a group of people for 20 years, all right, just for a devil fruit ability. That is that's crazy, all right? So he kills Thatch, 4th Division Commander. We already knew this. This is in the anime. Thatch is the 4th Division Commander. The novel says that he's the cook of the Whitebeard pirates, and he uses a sword that resembles a knife, like a kitchen knife. Going back to Blackbeard a little bit, Oda said in an SBS that if Blackbeard was not a pirate, he would be an archaeologist, and he also said that one of Blackbeard's hobbies is studying history. Now, I'm only bringing this up because, again, I do think that there's more to the Yami Yami no Mi than just, being so, broken because it can negate devil fruit abilities. I think there's a specific reason for why he waited 20 years to get that devil fruit. And I also think that, we were speculating back in Zoe that since Robin is one of the few people who can read the poneglyphs, eventually Marshall D. Teach Blackbeard could aim for her and try and kidnap her. But if Oda is saying that Blackbeard would be an archaeologist if he were not a pirate and he likes history, I don't know. Does that mean that maybe he's found his own way of interpreting the poneglyphs and get to Raftel, and so therefore he wouldn't need Robin? I don't know. It also says here that Big Mom is scariest when she's in a bad mood. And I don't disagree with that, but I would add and say that Big Mom gets into a bad mood when she feels like she is not being listened to. There's a body of evidence throughout Whole Cake Island where she really, really begins to get that rage up when she feels like she's not being listened to, when she asks for something. Where's my candy? She gets really upset. Where's my croquembouche? When she was younger, she spanked the bear and killed him because she felt like the bear wasn't listening to her because the bear was misbehaving. And then the last one referring to Kaido is great because it says that Kaido is just scary because he's Kaido. There's no need for anything else. He's scary enough as it is. It reminds me of that quote from Avengers where Captain America tells the Hulk, Dr. Banner, now would be a really good time to get angry. And then Dr. Banner just says, that's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry. So that's kind of like Kaido's secret, where he's always scary. He's always ready to go. He's always ready for combat. He's always vicious. And then Blackbeard is scary when he plans things out and when he's being a piece of shit. That was actually not part of the translation. I made that one up, but I think it fits. We also find out that Whitebeard and Big Mom are from an older generation than Shanks and Kaido. So out of the four, It's Whitebeard and Big Mom. Those two came first, and then Kaido and Shanks joined up later. So there's like a generational gap between Big Mom, Whitebeard, and Shanks and Kaido, which to me makes perfect sense because I remember back in Whole Cake when Big Mom was talking about the possibility of the alliance with the Giants, you know, that didn't go through. She was saying, if I had gotten what I wanted to get out of that alliance, I would have been able to become the Pirate King by defeating Shanks, Kaido, and even Whitebeard. So she uses the even to set Whitebeard apart in that dialogue, which now that I think about it, it makes sense because, like, you know, it would make sense that she would hold him at higher esteem because, you know, they've known each other for longer. They go way back. The old man and the old hag have known each other for a long time. The novel actually claims that at the time, Whitebeard was the strongest in the world. And remember, like, this is Whitebeard's era. But then the author kind of backtracks and I guess like adds a little side note there saying that it's very difficult to define what the strongest person means in the world of One Piece. So I don't know. I think it's up for debate because it's like it's very unclear. Does he have the strongest crew, the strongest devil fruit ability, both of those things combined? What defines him being the strongest? Because I think back then, after the death of Roger, you know, during this time period of there not being a Pirate King, for sure, you know, Whitebeard could have held the title of strongest man alive. However, even in the same novel, Skull, who is the source of information for the reader about these legends about the Yonko, says that in a 1v1, he thinks Kaido would win. And then he goes on to call Kaido the strongest creature, which we've known since Kaido's introduction that he's been the strongest creature. So I think it's like intentionally made to just be ambiguous. Because like the question is, okay, so you have the strongest man and the strongest creature. What's the difference? Who really is the strongest? But I think that what the author is saying is that physically, all right, Kaido may have been superior to Whitebeard at the time where Kaido became a Yonko. However, I think what the author is trying to say is that there's more to being the strongest than just physicality, than just being physically fit, than just being about physical power. The problem with that, though, is that it pretty much leaves us in the same place, because if in fact the author is saying that there's more to power, there's more to being the strongest than just physicality, then the question is, well, what is that? And you know, how can we evaluate that when it comes to Whitebeard? So again, it's just left very, very unclear. The translation also states that Big Mom at the time was the strongest family, and when I read that, I was like, yeah, not anymore, not anymore. Those cracks were exposed. The cracks within the Charlotte family were exposed during Whole Cake Island. And it also says that Big Mom prefers business, whereas Kaido prefers violence, and then Whitebeard was just all around this good old-fashioned classical pirate. So I thought that was cool. What I find funny, though, is that when it comes to Shanks, like the person talking about the Yonko says, and when it comes to Shanks, I just have no idea. Like, he's just a giant question mark, so who knows? Another translator by the name of Emunopla actually gave us some bullet points, like just summarizing some of the main contents of the novel. And one of them says that before the age of the Yonko, before the era of the Yonko, it was the age of Shiki, Whitebeard, and Roger. And that right there is huge because it confirms a couple things. Number one, before the age of the Yonko, before Kaido, Shanks, Big Mom, and Whitebeard, there was no such thing as Yonko. Those four are the original Yonko. There was no Yonko before them, okay? After Roger passed away, Shiki went to Impel Down, and the only man who was left still in power was Whitebeard. Therefore, this also could confirm that Whitebeard was in fact the first Yonko ever. Even before Big Mom, because otherwise they would be mentioning Big Mom's name alongside Roger's, alongside Shiki's, and alongside Whitebeard's, and that was not the case. Like, she wasn't being acknowledged at that time. Otherwise, why is it called the age of Shiki, Roger, and Whitebeard? Well, where's Big Mom? At this point, I just don't think she was as big as Whitebeard in terms of recognition. So all we know about Big Mom back in the day is that Roger fooled her and was able to get the information off of her poneglyph, to the point where it kind of makes it seem as if Roger didn't even have to fight Big Mom to get around her. Then again, it could be that Roger didn't want to get into a fight with Big Mom because it was too big of a risk. Maybe he just didn't want to risk it, so he tried to find a way of going around her. But let me know in the comment section, like, why do you think Roger did not engage Big Mom in combat? And another thing that we can infer from that statement is that the Yonko, and this is something that I made an entire video about, the Yonko exist for the sole purpose of stopping other pirates from becoming Pirate King, okay? And I say this because there's some speculation, there's some people that have been talking about once these Yonko fall, who's going to take their place? Who will be the next Yonko? The answer is nobody, because the whole point of having a Yonko system is to stop a Pirate King from existing. My impression is that once this Yonko saga is over and Luffy becomes Pirate King, the system of the Yonko will end up going the way of the Shichibukai, and it'll just be disintegrated or it'll be dismantled, because there's no point in having these 4 major top tiers stopping a person from becoming Pirate King if there's already a Pirate King. It would just be the Marines versus the pirates. You would have Pirate King Luffy and then a bunch of top tier pirates that would accompany that era, but not necessarily carry the title of Yonko for being top tier. Going back to the novel, Ace's ship is called Peace of Spadil. Spadil is another way of saying Ace of Spades. So nice tidbit there, nice bit of information regarding Ace. That's his ship. It looks like a horse. Ace meets Shanks inside of a cave at a winter island. Again, this is all in the anime and in the manga, but the novel expands on that meeting. Ace talks about Luffy, obviously, East Blue stuff. He mentions Makino, and like the moment he mentions Makino, I guess a lot of the red hair pirates get kind of giggly, because I guess they know that there's something going on between Shanks and Makino. This is something that fans have theorized and assumed for years now. In fact, they think that the kid on this cover page right here is actually Shanks' kid, and then Makino's the mom. It's funny because Shanks says that, he says that one of the reasons why he goes back to the East Blue, specifically that village, is because he likes the sake, but I guess he obviously likes more than just the sake from that village. And so Shanks tells Ace about his scar. Specifically, he tells him that it was Teach, Blackbeard, who gave it to him. And back in the day, there's this very small panel back in Fishman Island that showcases like that Blackbeard had like this Wolverine claw that he used to have back when he was working under Whitebeard, back when he was pretending to be a subordinate. So I'm pretty sure that's what he used to give Shanks the scar. Now this is just my interpretation of the scene, but I get the feeling that the reason for why Shanks is going out of his way to talk about his scar to Ace is because he's intuitively trying to warn him about Blackbeard. I think Shanks knew that if Ace went to try and find Whitebeard, that Whitebeard would eventually sympathize with him and like him and try to recruit him as one of his sons, and that he would eventually end up in the same ship as Blackbeard. So he was trying to tell him, watch out for this guy. And we know this because the translation says that the crew, the red-haired pirates, are actually very surprised that Shanks is even talking about the scar in the first place. They're like, wait, what? You barely talk about this scar to us. Like, why are you talking to him about it? So anyway, the Spade Pirates leave the island, and this is where Ben Beckman's analytical skills come into play. Oda has actually stated that Ben Beckman, as of right now, is the character with the highest IQ in the series. And so after Ace leaves, Shanks turns to Beckman and asks, okay, give me the rundown. What do you think about this kid? And Beckman just breaks it down. This is where the Yonko Commander level type shade starts kicking in. Beckman does not hold back on Ace. He's like, okay, first of all, the kid's way more naive than he seems. That's number one. Number two is he's too impulsive, all right? He seems more like a fighter than a pirate. And if that's the case, if he wanted to just pick a fight with everybody, he should have joined the Revolutionary Army. He should have called up Bello Betty. He also tells Shanks that he doesn't think that Ace would have been a good fit for Shichibukai, which, by the way, Ace turned down that title. Okay, he didn't want it. Just shade, man. Just shade all over the place. And he says this. He says, by the way, the kid's bounty's too high. You don't give somebody a bounty over 100 mil unless there's something else going on behind the scenes. And so then Shanks thinks about the name of the town where Ace told him that he was born, and he was like, oh, I think I know what it is. I think Ace is Goldie Roger's son. And that's after the Beckman roast. The way that Beckman judges new people that he meets, I do the exact same thing when I meet new people in real life, And that's probably why I have no friends. Remember how I said that the island where they met was a winter island? Well, Shanks said that he could actually feel Ace's haki approaching since he started walking on the coast of the island, which speaks to his observation haki. But he also talks about Ace's haki as being like a fire, like a flame. And then Beckman says, yeah, that's why the snow started to melt. And then he left, and then the snowstorm or the snow continued. And so when I first read that, I was kind of confused because I was like, I don't know if this is like a property of Ace's Devil Fruit ability or of his haki. I don't know if it was the haki that had the effect on the weather or if it was the secondary ability of his Devil Fruit ability, and that allowed for the snow to sort of start melting. It's either haki or the Mera Mera no Mi. Like, that's the only two options. And if it's haki, this is a new discovery, and I mean, it's confirmation for this new type of ability for haki, not a Devil Fruit ability. And I think it should have been confirmed via Oda, not this novel. So I'm leaning towards it like being related to the Logia power instead of his haki. But I don't know, because when Shanks and Whitebeard clashed, the clouds were like acting kind of funny. So it could be a haki feat. But what do you think happened there? And actually, just to add on to this, I'm going to add a third option, because this could also be like a Will of D thing. It could be a Logia thing, a haki thing, or a Will of D thing. Just because, like, I remember back in the Battle of Edwar, which is the battle where Roger fought Shiki, the thing that gave Roger the advantage in that fight, in that battle, was a change in the weather. There was a storm that hit, and that's how Shiki ended up being defeated, or at least one of the factors that caused Shiki's defeat. And so could there be a connection between Roger and the storm? And given the fact that Ace is Roger's son, the fact that Ace seems to be melting the snow, I mean, Dragon's a D, and he seems to have some affinity to manipulate the weather as well. So let me know. That could just be like a wind Logia, but let me know. Do you think, out of the 3 multiple choice answers, what do you think it is? Is it a Logia thing, a haki thing, or a Will of D thing? And that's going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you appreciated the video, please leave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel for more One Piece related content. Comment down below with your thoughts about the points that I made and the new information about the Yong-Chol and the Whitebeard age. Thank you. Bye.